No Sleep by the Asag Covenant. Part 1. It had been 3 days, and I found myself dwelling in the pits of madness yet again. Another night passed as I gazed upon my blood-soaked hands and sweat-drenched skirt, wandering the city night like a drone. I couldn't help myself. The voice called to me, filling my head with thoughts of homicide, joyous, uncompromising homicide. And it would happen again and again and again. This was all just another night of no sleep. Thus began the story of Saren. I'd befriended a posh Welshwoman who was visiting New York on vacation last week. She'd donned the latest fashion trends with a superiority complex to match her uncouth wit and unsavory appetite. Saren Greenway. What a delightful name, I thought to myself the day I was able to extract it from her. Snubbed my attempts at conversation each time I approached her, and her little clique who accompanied her from Wales. My endeavors at friendship had failed at every turn with Saren since she'd been in New York. I'd followed her, stalked her, tracked her to every club she frequented to get her attention. This woman desired the finest things in life and would only converse with those who could offer them to her. It wasn't until I revealed my vast amount of wealth that her interest became piqued. When I displayed the keys to my custom-made, gold-plated Bugatti La Voiture Noire, all the pieces fell into my lap. I knew then it would be another night of no sleep. While my outward appearance failed to signal my place in high society, those who knew me, or at least heard of my reputation, understood that I didn't need fancy glamour or expensive clothes to feel important. My name alone did that. When one did what I did in their off hours, it would behoove them to keep a low profile.
Kill her,
the voice said as we approached the private underground club I'd constructed 3 years ago. For much of my life, I'd fought the urges, fought the voice. But then, long ago, I'd realized that I needed to become one with my demons, to become one with what I truly was. Embracing the darkness was the only way for me to survive. And as we ventured into the club and welcomed the music, inhaled the sweet aroma of alcohol, and danced until our bodies were dripping with sweat, the voice still boomed in my head. The demons craved blood. They craved homicidal satisfaction.
What are you staring at?
Saren asked, sipping on her caipirinha that I'd paid for. The scent of her hair tantalizing my brain, drawing me ever so closer to the voice and ever so nearer to her demise. She put her drink on a nearby table, grabbed my hand, and sat me down in the VIP section of my club.
Are you all right?
She asked. What would make you think that I'm not? I said with a dismissive gaze.
Because you were just standing in the middle of the dance floor, staring into the sky. I've never seen someone just abruptly stop dancing to stare at nothing. Maybe you've had too much to drink,
she said. I smirked without responding to her inquiry. Not a drop of alcohol had touched my tongue that night. My bartender knew I didn't drink, so he always served me a regular, non-alcoholic beverage that only gave the appearance of luxurious spirits. My senses needed to be refined and clear for what was to come. Saren, however, was poised to be intoxicated to such an extent that she wouldn't remember what transpired on the night of her end. "Would you like another drink?" I asked her. She gulped down the rest of her caipirinha and slammed the glass onto the table.
I don't know. I'm meeting my friends at the new Dolce & Gabbana store downtown tomorrow morning. I'm probably going to have the worst hangover as it is,
she said. I smiled. "You needn't worry, Saren. I'm sure if you wish to meet your friends a little later, they would be fine with it. Besides, who goes shopping in the early morning anyway? Saturday mornings are for orange juice, toast, eggs, and rest. They're for staying in a luxurious bed well into the afternoon with the scent of coffee and roses filling your home, wouldn't you say?" One of the servers placed 2 shots of Patron tequila before us. "Go ahead, drink," I said. Smiling, she grabbed the shot glass and slammed it back before howling with excitement.
Wow, that's strong,
she said. "Go ahead, take the other one," I pressed. She slapped me on the bare knee playfully. The dress I was wearing exposed my legs up to my thighs.
No, I've had enough,
she retorted. "Enjoy yourself, Saren. Who knows when we'll be able to meet again? Please?" I put the shot glass up to her lips. "I insist." She took the shot and gulped it down, clenching my knee with her fingernails. I smiled with the knowledge that both drinks contained just the right amount of sedative needed to help her unknowingly give me consent to do whatever I wished with her. The cellar in the basement of this club was calling our names, and calling them well.
Take her. She's ready. Satisfy me, Alyona. Satisfy me,
said the voice. Since childhood, the voice was always there. Riddled within me was the struggle to keep the voice at bay. This seed of darkness, this declaration of decay, this voice that ensured I'd have another night of no sleep, would always be there, waiting to be sated. Saren would fall prey to the seed's will, the will of this darkness. "I think it's about time I took you home," I said. The tone of my voice was deep and thirstful. This had to be done. It was the only way I could satisfy my savior, who awaited another sacrifice.
What time is it?
She shouted over the loud electronic music blasting within the club. 3 a.m. I can take you to my place if you don't want to drive back to your hotel, I suggested. Barely able to keep her eyes open, Saren began to slur as she gave me her answer.
Sure,
she said. The sedatives were working beautifully. Only now, the sleep she would fall into would forever seal her fate. No rest for me. No dreams for my weary eyes. This would be another night as I sated the hunger of the darkness within me. Another night of no sleep. Part 2.
Where am I?
Saren mumbled, opening her groggy eyes. I'd bound her to my table, where so many others before her had lain. Tonight would be the night. This moment would be the last she'd ever see. She tugged on the chains that bound her. The sweat from Saren's naked body gave off a hypnotic scent that served to fuel my sadistic side that much more. I squeezed my eyes shut to suppress the urge to taste her. The seed wouldn't allow that.
Alyona, what's going on? What is this?
The pitch of her voice and the panting of her breath told me panic was beginning to set in.
What are you doing, Alyona? What the heck is all this?
You know what this is, I said with my back toward her. The voice was whispering in my mind, calling for me to begin the ritualistic sacrifice to the seed. The music from the club upstairs was dead silent behind the soundproof roof of this cellar. The biometric entrance ensured no one but I could get in or out. I'd constructed this perfect kill room. There was no stopping me. Thus was the will of the seed.
Alyona, please, just let me go. I'll do anything you ask. I'll even do that threesome with Beth and Rita. Just untie me.
She pleaded. I sucked my teeth. Anything I ask? Are you sure?
Yes, I promise.
She exclaimed, pulling harder on the chains binding her wrists. What about the children? All those little boys. What about them? I asked.
Boys?
She stuttered. I turned around to gaze at her. The expression on her face was telling. It was as though she went from caring about her own safety to trying to hide the shock of what I just asked her. Come on, Saren. You know what I'm talking about. The little boys you molested and murdered. Would you like me to refresh your memory? I said in a deathly tone. The seed had taken over completely. Alyona was floating in and out of existence. The declaration of decay, the seed of darkness, fought me for control.
I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me!
I screamed in a psychotic rage, slamming my fist on the steel table she was lying upon.
Alyona, please, just let me go. I'll pay you whatever you want.
I turned my attention back to the table and began to sharpen the tools I planned to use for this ritual.
She's denying you, Alyona. Not only is she a killer of innocence, but also a liar. A quick death is too good for her. You must make her suffer, as those children suffered. You must satisfy me, Alyona. You must satisfy me.
Taunted the seed. At that moment, my sense of self became a passenger. The voice pushed me to the back seat and took complete control of the wheel. Saren's denial of guilt helped to force the seed's hand in assuming absolute jurisdiction of this vessel.
I don't know anything about any boys. You're insane if you think.
I grabbed a handful of her platinum blonde hair.
If I think what, child killer?
I shouted, cutting her off. Behind her eyes was no emotion, just a stoic construct of nothingness, an unfeeling void of sociopathy, just like me. Releasing her head, I focused on the counter where my tools were sitting. Behind my black reciprocating saw was a remote to a television I'd positioned right above the table Saren was bound to. Without saying another word, I turned the TV on and allowed the images to flash before her.
I don't like this. My mommy and daddy are going to be worried about me. Can I please go home now?
A little boy said on the television screen.
I'll let you go home only after you take off all your clothes,
Saren said to the boy, before removing a knife from behind her back.
Turn it off!
What could ever be the matter? I thought you said you didn't know anything about any boys, I said sarcastically.
Please, just turn it off,
she begged. I switched off the TV, not for her sake, but so I wouldn't have to relive the grotesqueness that came after. You know, keeping these videos so you can relive your transgressions isn't very wise, I said. Saren opened her eyes, breathing heavily. Do you still wish to deny it? I asked. Her body flushed red. Tears rolled down her face.
I'm sorry. I can't help myself. It's a need in me that I can't purge,
she said. I hovered above her, placing both hands on the table, one on each side of her head. You and I have the same need, but I shook my head. Children? That's something I could never do.
But I can't stop. Children, the very word gets me excited. I can't live without them,
she confessed. I turned my back to her. Don't worry, Saren. I'll be sure to solve the living problem for you. People like you don't deserve life.
But you said that you have the same need. Who are you to judge me? What did I ever do to you?
I picked up the saw. You speak as if I'm doing this to you, as opposed to doing this for myself. Yes, I have the same need, but my need isn't sexual. It's purely homicidal, and the seed is yearning to feast.
Please don't do this. I promise I'll never touch another child again,
she cried. You just told me that you can't live without them, right? This world is a waste bucket of filth, a domain of shit and suffering. And to tell you the truth, this world can do without another child-molesting serial killer. I revved the saw, which caused her to flinch.
What are you going to do to me?
The seed requires your death to be painful and slow. I will start at your feet, cutting them off with my reciprocating saw. Then I'll inch my way up your legs until I reach your torso. If you pass out from shock, I'll give you an adrenaline shot to wake you up. You must last until the end for the darkness to be satisfied. And when you're about to breathe your last breath and bleed your last drop of blood, I will call upon the Sumerian demon Asag to devour your soul and what's left of your body. You will behold the monstrous power of Asag with your dying eyes, I said proudly. Saren shook her body in various directions, trying to free herself.
You fucking insane! Help! Somebody help me!
She screamed in vain. Shh, Saren. There is no escape, and there is no hope. You will be cut into tiny pieces, and I will again have another night of restlessness. I gazed at her while lowering the saw to her feet with a smile.
God, please forgive me. I'm sorry. God, deliver me from this psycho,
she pleaded in desperation. I'm afraid God can't come to the phone right now. In fact, God always seems to be out of town when you need him, I mocked.
You're wrong. God is everywhere. God will protect me.
You mean the same way God protected those innocent children from you? I retorted, revving the saw.
No, stop! Help! Help!
She screamed as the saw cut into her flesh, splashing blood all over me. The darkness would be sated, and I'd go on an additional night in a dreamless state, another period of indulging the seed. Asag cometh, as I lived through an eventide of no sleep. Part 3. Pieces of sarin lay on the floor, blood soaking into the concrete. I used a blowtorch to seal the leaking wounds with each cut of her flesh. The smell of cooked meat surrounded me, provoking the seed even further. Both Saren's legs were gone, as were her arms. All that remained was her head and torso. I had to strap her down using plastic wrap to keep her still during the sawing. Each cut brought an indescribable pleasure that helped sate my carnal homicidal urge. Months of stalking, planning, and hacking into her personal computer to ensure her guilt had all led to this moment. It wasn't pure chance or by accident that this woman chose New York as her vacation stop. It was all instigated by me, prearranged by me. The clubs, the shopping sprees, the nights out partying and drinking would all lead this unsuspecting child killer to my domain, to my table. Thus was the will of the seed, the will of Asag.
You've taken everything from me. Just kill me. Kill me now.
She begged. I smiled, gazing down at her while wiping the blood off my tools. I had to put an IV into her veins to ensure she survived until the end of the ritual. Watching her lie there in misery gave me much delight. Every scream and every squirt of blood from this victim brought the sadism of the seed to new heights. The fact that she'd murdered children gave me more pleasure in watching her suffer. Justice was an illusion, but I would call it reckoning in this instance.
Just let me die, please. Just end me. I just can't take the cuts anymore.
She cried desperately. Having cleaned the blood from my tools, I sat and relaxed for a bit. Finally, I exhaled and pulled my chair up to her resting table.
Please,
she requested again. Delicious be this bounty. The sadomasochistic aura of you is what I crave. Sleep is meaningless. The spellbinding, mischievous calling of the seed can only be met with equal glory in the summoning of Asag. That purely dark, omnipotent, teeth-chattering, blood-drinking, flesh-consuming, soul-sucking, leviathanic beast is what we worship at the altar. And that is what I present to you, I said to her as her eyes were ridden with tears.
I'm begging you. Kill me.
She banged the back of her head against the steel table. Don't beg me, Saren. Instead, beg your God for deliverance. Pray to your Lord for salvation. Perhaps he'll show up, I said.
What are you waiting for, huh? Why are you waiting? Just fucking kill me already.
She flapped the stumps of what was left of her limbs and continued to bang her head on the table. I chuckled. I'm afraid the seed won't allow me to end you just yet. But fret not. Your death will come soon enough, I assured her.
Listen, I'll do anything you want. I'll confess to my crimes. I'll make a public statement. Just please, don't cut me again.
The sorrow in her voice made me moist. Your confession is pointless. The deaths of all those little boys don't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is flesh, I said, running a fine-tuned, freshly sharpened blade across her breast. She screamed in pain, which brought a smile to my face. I licked my lips.
Ah! What the fuck do you want from me?
What I wanted from you, I have already received. All that is required now is for you to become the bounty for Asag's supper. She gritted her teeth.
You're psychotic. Do you hear me? Fucking psychotic.
I grabbed a blood-stained rope from the counter where my tools were located, positioned Saren's head upright, and gagged her. No, Saren, you're the psychotic one. You've slaughtered over 50 children in the last 7 years. If you're looking for a reason why you've ended up on my table, then I present you with this, I said, holding a mirror to her face. Look at your reflection, because that is where the blame lies. More tears ran down her face as she screamed through the gag. With my knife in hand, I cut the plastic wrap from around what was left of her body, removed the IV from her neck, kicked the table out of the way, and laid Saren on the floor. She rolled and flopped left and right. Without limbs, she couldn't get very far. I gathered her severed hands, feet, arms, and legs, and laid them in a circle neatly around her body. The summoning of Asag would soon come to pass, and at that moment, the seed within me would be delivered from endless yearning for but a fleeting time. Normal was a temporary comfort. This seed, this declaration of decay, would always and forever have a hand on the wheel. That was the way of me, the only way I knew how to survive. Saren maneuvered the gag out of her mouth with her tongue and gazed at me, seething with rage. She began foaming at the mouth, screaming illogically.
I'll see you in hell, you bitch! You hear me? I'll kill you in hell!
I look forward to it, I responded with a smirk. Saren continued to flop around as I sat on the floor outside the circle of body parts. I folded my legs and began the chant that would bring Asag into this world. It was 4 a.m, thus verifying my prediction of another sleepless night. Asag would devour what was left of Saren and drag her soul to hell.
You're dead, Alyona! You're dead!
She screamed. Her mind was on the precipice of madness. Shh, shh. Asag will be here shortly. Just rest and embrace your fate. It's the only thing left for you to do, I said. She broke down into an emotional void and cried as I closed my eyes and restarted the chant. All would be well. The seed would be sated, and perhaps tomorrow night I'd get just a few hours of sleep. My body was begging for it. Part 4. An hour had passed, and the rite of the chant had entered its final phase. Saren's life was slowly diminishing after having lost so much blood. Asag would be displeased if he entered our realm only to find a soulless corpus as an offering. Perhaps I'd allowed the sadism of the seed to overcome me. Perhaps I'd taken it too far.
I'll see you in hell, Alyona. will dance in hell together,"
Saren whispered. Her energy was fading fast. Nevertheless, I needn't fret. The Dark One, my lord, Asag, would be here to feast any moment.
"You think some demon is going to come out of the floor and eat what's left of me? You're too far gone to be reasoned with. How could someone as insane as you have amassed such wealth and influence? This world is a joke."
She chuckled in depression. It seemed as if she'd accepted the finality of death. "Saren, my friend, you've been truly broken. Your soul is ripe to be devoured," I said.
"Oh, shut the hell up, you psycho bitch!"
she countered. Just as I recited the last passages of the chant, the ground grew cold while the walls lit aflame. Saren's body levitated inches from the floor, putting the fear of the unknown into her eyes. I, however, knew what was coming, just as it had come so many times before. The beast, the demon, Asag cometh.
"What the hell's going on?"
She screamed, trying unsuccessfully to move. "He's here! Asag is entering our realm! You will be a delightful meal! Asag will reward me for this offering unto him," I said.
"No! This can't be happening! It can't!"
she screamed. "Oh, but it is! It is, child killer!" I said pridefully. The room crumbled, the walls melted, and the floor turned to ice as I stared at Saren with exhilaration while awaiting my master's entrance.
"Bow to me,"
said the beast chillingly. The fabric of reality split open before us. The demonic claws of Asag pulled apart the split, widening it further. Its flaming red horns that protruded from its exposed skull came through the slit, exhausting a stench unfathomable to man. I breathed it in, unabashed, as if I were inhaling the scent of a freshly blossomed rose.
"Nigh is the darkness that cometh before the light. Nigh is the reality of filth and decay. Soulless pleasure pain. Nigh is all that is Asag,"
said the demon. The slit opened wider, allowing my lord to reveal his face to Saren. A hideously deformed, skinless, animalistic skull with sharp teeth 10 inches in length. His 4 pupilless eyes shone red, piercing into our souls. Asag's physique was a cross between those of an overly muscular werewolf and a centaur. Glorious.
"What the fuck is that thing?"
Saren cried. "My lord takes many forms, for he can be whatever he wants to be. This form, however, is all for you, Saren," I said while gazing at Asag in awe.
No, this isn't real. I'm dead. This is hell."
She shouted. "Hell is but an illusion created by man. This, my dear Saren, is reality." I sat up, got on my knees, and bowed before Asag. His covenant was all I longed for.
"Alyona Asag, Another one. You've brought me another one,
said my lord.
Yes, my savior. All this is for your bounty. Her soul is the embodiment of filth and decay. May you feast well, I said. The voices of tortured children echoed around us, crying, screaming in pain.
Listen and listen well. Those are the sounds of your victim, Saren Greenway. The more immoral the soul, the sweeter the taste.
Asag licked his teeth with his crusty, dried gray tongue.
Innocence may be the main course, but debauchery will always be dessert.
He growled as foamy, pinkish saliva dripped from his fang-like teeth.
God, please save me, she screeched.
Asag wrapped his hand around Saren's body and lifted her to his eye level.
The only god that exists is I, Asag.
He howled before biting her head, neck, and half of her shoulders clean off. He gazed at me with delight as he crunched on her flesh and bones. Saren's tormented black soul floated from her deceased body, warped and suffering. Saren's soul screamed before being sucked into the slit from which Asag emerged. My lord consumed the rest of her body happily, crunching and crunching. I removed my clothes and continued to prostrate myself for his almighty glory. I was bare before him, offering all that I was to my savior. Having devoured the rest of her, Asag sprouted bat-like wings and flapped them robustly, fanning the stench into the pores of my naked body.
Alyona Asag,
he whispered. Yes, my lord.
Bring me more, for the nightmare will soon fall upon your world. Bring me more,
he said, before vanishing back into the slit. The gaping split in reality closed behind him, forcing everything to return to what it once was. All remains of Saren were gone, leaving behind only a puddle of blood. I was alone. Having sated the seed within me and satisfied my savior with yet another sacrifice, nevertheless, I would take heed of his warning of the nightmare to come. And just as always, the seed of darkness would hunger again. The thoughts of homicide, joyous, uncompromising homicide, would need to be fed. The voice would sing again and again and again. I dipped my hands into the pool of blood and rubbed them across my face. The club had closed, but it was still night. Thus I journeyed outside and wandered the city night, neck deep in madness with blood-soaked hands. That was all I could do to regain my senses. Yet, deep within me, I knew it wouldn't be long until I experienced another night of no sleep. For I knew the sleep demons awaited me in slumber.